Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Outrageous Grace podcast. We are excited to have you here. Grab your drink of choice, come sit down and hang with us as we talk about how to do the holidays in a God-honoring way.
Woohoo! Charlie, wait, I just thought, why don't both of us have some sort of holiday decoration behind us? That's fail.
Aw, dang it. I haven't gotten my Christmas tree yet, which I'm super disappointed about. Anyways, I guess they don't ship to Texas until after Thanksgiving. Disappointing, but
Well,
that's okay.
Texas doesn't have trees like that, do they?
No, I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyways, talking about the holidays today, and we all know if you have ever been a child or been married or dated or had any sort of family, you know that the holidays can be a lot sometimes. They can be a little tense, they can be a little triggering, they can be really fun too. It's like bittersweet. But we just want to talk about it a little bit, talk about how to walk out the holidays, how to have, or what perspective to have, how to acknowledge the feelings that you might be having around the holidays, all of these things. So, yeah, Mom, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think holidays, since we've been married, has been one of those topics that has been both good and bad. And I've done a lot of not so healthy discussing, and then we enjoy our holidays and we love the people we're with, and then I regret how I behaved. So I'm going to share a lot of really good don't do this if you want to have a successful holiday engagement. So anyway, that'll be good. So I'm excited. So one of the things, like Ty said, we just want to talk about how to honor God during the holidays. And I think that's super, super important because what you focus on during that season will really determine where your perspective is, what the value is to you, and what you do with that. And so I think just to really quickly just cover, we want to honor God in our holidays. We want to honor him with the way we treat people during the holidays, the way we encounter people, the way we treat our holiday celebrations and the things that we do. And then most importantly, as we're planning and preparing and setting expectations, just to make sure that God is at the very center and the focus of what that is. So that's kind of how we're coming in on this. And so I'm excited. The holidays are just around the corner.
It's crazy. By the time this episode comes out, I think it will be Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Wow.
I cannot wait.
Happy
Although, total side note, and this is just one of these things in a topic. Well, maybe I should save it. No, I'll just go ahead and say it now. We bought the house we're in thinking it was very short term. Every other house I've ever bought, I always plan where the Christmas tree will go before we decide if we want the house. This house, I did not think we would be here for the holidays. I have no place for my Christmas tree. It had no plan in this house. Yeah. All right.
So how are you learning to be flexible with that?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's back here. Let's start with this, and then we'll circle back around. I think one of the big parts about having your Christmas holiday, and Ty, we didn't say this before, but I think it's about expectations. Years ago, when I thought my Christmas was going to look like the Hallmark Channel, no one ever could get it right. The streets did not glisten, the lanterns did not glow, the children did not behave perfectly, the gift was not the perfect one, the food did not turn out exactly how I had hoped. And so I think looking at it from a realistic perspective is really super important. And really, I think we can say it all we want. Don't set unrealistic expectations, but until you've set them and failed, I think it's probably hard to figure out that was unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
But right? Things that you set and you're like, okay, I always make, for me, I'm a 7. Every event is a mega event. It's so big in my mind. So my perspective has just got to be scaled back a bit, mostly probably by half, if not 3/4. If it was just me and a bunch of 7s, we would blow this sucker out. but it's not. And not everybody wants to party day and night, every single hour until New Year's. So that being said, I think just having good realistic expectation, how many hours in a day you have, how many things you want to pack in a day or a week,
Yeah.
what things add stress, what things are restful, and then just making sure that you're packing in the things that are so fruitful. So yeah, so let's talk about the flexibility part. Ty, why don't you share that verse that you grabbed?
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about Proverbs 10:12. Let me pull it up. It says, hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses.
That sounds like a crazy strong verse, because we're like flexibility at the holidays, like hatred, strife, really? But
I feel like it's very spot on because it's not like you hate your husband and you're just stirring up strife with him because you hate him, but it's talking like about like I feel like it is like a lot of times like when those expectations don't happen, it's almost like just this anger of like, oh, why isn't this happening? And that is stirring up the strife. But what this verse is saying is that love covers all offenses. And so instead of having that perspective of like, oh, this didn't work out, like I'm so mad, like this frustration, and just having this flexibility of like, it's okay. Like, does
yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. And I think being selfless, if I'm thinking about a love that covers offense and working on, allowing God to remove that hatred, it means I do have to be selfless. I have to think of others first, and to be flexible, So I think that's so true. So with the Christmas tree is a big deal for us. I always had a fake one growing up. Brett always had a real one. And we love the real one. It's a big deal. But I'm very particular about which type of real tree. So we hunt and pass many a tree before we get to the grove.
Let me tell you, we passed many that look exactly the same to the tree that we get to all of us, but we will do it for mom.
Yes, it's one thing I'm pretty committed to. Well, and I have a reason. It's not just for randomness, but the other part I love about my tree is I love them to be very tall. And so typically I like to have some sort of angled ceiling or vaulted, a high ceiling in a certain area where the tree goes, because I just love the tree that lights up the room. And the other reason I like this tree, and I don't even know what I think it's called a blue spruce, but the branches are all very separate. And I love it because you see all your ornaments. I had never lost a Christmas ornament on a tree like this. So yeah, so anyway, okay, so flexibility when it comes to those kinds of things, just figuring out what things are important to you, and what things aren't. Can I just tell a quick story that I heard the other day I was just listening to Focus on the Family about managing expectations. And it was a very funny story about this couple who'd just gotten married. And in the husband's growing up, they had always done Christmas stockings, but in the wife's, they had never. And so he had told her, it's going to be great. Please, can we just do stockings? And she was like, yeah, this will be awesome. So Christmas morning comes around. He was just thrilled that she was willing to adopt a new tradition that she hadn't had before. And he was just thrilled. So she watches him open his gifts, and his gifts are thoughtful. They are things she's really put time and effort in. It has to do with his personality, his favorite things, his hobbies, and she really went all out. Well, then she opens hers, and it's a bunch of gag gifts, silly little things, dollar store some things, and they were just funny things that may have reminded him of her, but it wasn't meant to be like a cherished, thoughtful gift. Well, she starts sobbing. And she's just so hurt that this is what he thinks of her in a stocking, right? And, he said, we can laugh about it now, 20 years later, but at the time, it really did hurt. But the expectation hadn't been managed before in saying, okay, so you've never done them before. This is how my family did it. Would you like to do it that way? Does that sound fun to you?
Yeah.
But she didn't know. He didn't know. Anyway, lesson learned.
Yeah.
But I think being flexible is hugely important, just to learn each other, what's important. Yeah.
Don't think being flexible means that you can't communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like that story is a perfect example. Like it's all about in the way that you talk about it, but it doesn't have to stir up strife to be like, okay, yeah, we're doing stockings. So what do you think stockings mean? Or like even Isaiah and I have had that conversation because I get so stressed out by gifts. It's like overwhelming to me. I hate doing them. So I always want to talk about like how expensive are we doing this? Like, are these going to be like one, or are we doing five, or like what does this look like? And I think those are good conversations because they help manage the expectations so that when you get to that point, it's not like you don't feel humiliated for not doing what they did, or you don't feel super frustrated for putting in all this work when they didn't. And anyways,
Mm-hmm.
point is being flexible and being selfless doesn't mean that you can't communicate and get on the same page about things, because that will also help manage the expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think just thinking through things, just because, and I guess I keep thinking of newlywed or, like new family, where you're suddenly encountering a lot of these situations. But even thinking through a holiday tradition that maybe your grandma did and your mom did, and so dang it, we're going to do it. If it doesn't work, or sometimes you try something for a while and it just doesn't work out well. What is the thing that you loved about that? Was it baking cookies with grandma? Was it, just time spent, whatever, mulling over how you were going to decorate the tree, or whatever the case may be? Pick the thing that was the most important and focus on that rather than the whole big shebang, and just focus on the one piece that was so important that you want to pass on as a tradition. And I think that's really good. And I think it just comes back to, again, just removing hatred. The people in our families, the people that want to get together with us, for goodness sake, they're not the enemy. And sometimes it feels like it, that they're messing all my plans up, or they just won't get on board to do it my way. So I think just reminding ourselves that loving them, understanding that they have traditions and thoughts and expectations, and good communication should have been the topic of holidays.
And truthfully, like if you're married, I mean, it depends on your situation, but generally you're working with you might be working with maybe two sets of parents, maybe four sets of parents, maybe one, maybe not. I don't know what your situation is, but I mean, you could potentially be working with like 5 families, and that's a lot.
It's a ton.
Yeah, it is. And so I feel like there needs to be some level of just grace, that it's not always the people that are, it's just, it is what it is. It's hard. But in that, it's also okay to set boundaries. Like you don't have to. And that's again the communication. Like it's okay to communicate those things. But
yeah, I think that kind of flows very naturally into perspective, which we were talking about. And early in our marriage, especially when we had youngins, I'm just an idealist. So the second I got married, I had all these plans that marriage was going to be, and the holidays were the highlight of the plans of the year and all this stuff. And, when we got married, it was just like that. We had grandma's house. Brett's grandma lived close by and she was here. My grandma came to my parents' house. So that was one less house, but we still then had both parents, and we wanted to do ours. And it seemed like it all ran together, and looking back now at perspective, I wish I would have just enjoyed more of it and been more relaxed, because, a newborn or, toddlers or something, they do get tired, and that's a whole fact, we have to factor in. But just the perspective of grandparents who get to enjoy their grandchildren, great grandparents who are enjoying their the great grandchildren that they don't maybe get to see often. I think just stepping back and going, okay, what do I see here? Where's some value in this? And what is that? And what do I want my kids to remember? Unfortunately, and I'm not going to ask you to comment, Ty, but when we talked about holiday plans and what was coming up, what was my heart on it? I think for years it was angst. I just struggled so much. And how much that stinks that now that's what I've taught you guys is it's so much struggle. I could have controlled my emotion and thought through that, and just had a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like for me too, like This is my first Christmas married. We did kind of celebrate together last year, but we went to our own family's houses for like Christmas Day. Um, anyways, but I feel like with this being our first year, it is a little tricky because one of our families lives in Texas and one lives
Mhm.
in Utah, so there is no option to do both, which I would love. I'm sure it comes with its own difficulties, but that would be fun.
Mhm.
Anyways, but I've just been processing with myself a lot lately because it's my first time that I will not be at home for Christmas in my 21 years of life. And I feel like in my mind, like there has just been two clear choices, and I can either let that just like root in me and
Mhm.
just be pissed about it and hate Christmas, or I can choose to change my perspective and say like, oh my gosh, I've never met all of Isaiah's extended family. I'm so excited to meet them. I'm so excited to spend time with his family, to see how his family does Christmas. I'm excited to be in Texas for Christmas. It might be warm enough to go play pickleball on Christmas. Like that's crazy.
That is
Whatever.
crazy.
But I like in this moment I have two choices. And truthfully, like my feelings, they're not a lack of love for my family, my second family. I love them so much, but it doesn't always take away like the feelings that I'm gonna miss my family's Christmas too.
Uh,
But I get that choice to be able to choose which perspective I'm gonna feed and which attitude I'm gonna feed and what attitude I'm gonna show up in on Christmas Day with them. And like, I don't want to look back and be like, wow, our first Christmas sucked because I was a jerk.
uh,
I want to look back and be like, that was so fun. Yeah, it was hard, but it was also fun. And I chose to make it that way. Does that make
well,
sense?
let me read this verse because I think you've alluded to it beautifully. So this is Psalm 34:1, and it says, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. It's a challenge when there are things that are difficult. So by way of the same perspective, the same situation, different perspective, this is our first year without Tylee at home. And for me, one of the big things I learned about flexibility early on, all I care about is my family getting together. I don't care about the day. I don't care about the what anybody else thinks about it. I just want to be with my girls. And so years ago, when the family was just so many things going on, it was a lot of anxiety for me because I just wanted to build traditions. I just wanted a relaxing time at home with my family. And so probably maybe a couple years into Tottie's, maybe you were born by the time I got this figured out. I can't remember. So, we were only a handful of years into marriage. But we just decided we are going to give my mom New Year's Eve, or I'm sorry, Christmas Eve, and we'll give his mom Christmas Day. But then we're going to take a whole nother separate day. And so we typically celebrate Christmas around the 22nd or 23rd, whatever the schedule looks best for us to have an entire day. And I block the day out. And that day I make my Christmas breakfast. We get up and do our stockings and our Christmas gifts. We have a big, we snack all day and watch Christmas movies. We hang out together, play games. And then in the evening, we have a big dinner together. And sometimes we invite company to come for our Christmas dinner. And so that was the value to me. It didn't matter as much on the day. Now, having said that, we did not celebrate Santa. Santa didn't bring gifts to our house. That wasn't a thing that we did. And so I didn't have to work around how he came to my house 3 days before everybody else's. We did, however, have to coach our children to not go there when kids are like, how come you already got to celebrate Christmas? Just to say, that's just what my parents did. Or, we got to open mom and dad's gifts or whatever the case may be. So, but it was more to me the value of having the day itself with my whole family. And so this year, again, just trying to be flexible and not create problems. We're not going to celebrate our Christmas, I think, until like the 27th then of December. And so we'll just try to pack our week of fun so Tacey doesn't feel like she's missed everything and just do some fun family things. But then when you and Isaiah fly in, then we'll just celebrate Christmas between Christmas and New Year's, and it will be just as wonderful as we've always done. Sometimes we've done it at home. when Toddy was working away from home and lived up at school, we rented an Airbnb, took the Christmas tree and all the presents, and we did Christmas at an Airbnb. So we just try to be flexible. I just would rather them be with me than make it about the day and make everybody hate me because they just can't make it work. So at some point in the future, Christmas may be in January or November. I don't know. But I just want to love you guys well so you don't feel stressed and it doesn't cause a conflict here. And just to learn from things that we've grown through. And so I think it's just to praise the Lord that one, we have so many blessings, that there are so many people we want to fit into our lives. That should forever be one of the praises on my lips, that people even want to hang out with me, even though I was a jerk for so many years about the holidays. But just that there are opportunities, there's time, family is still here. So that's a praise that I continually want to have on my lips is thank you. Thank you for blessing me with this. Thanks for a calendar that's works, that we can make that work. So yeah, it's good. It's good perspective for sure.
The truth is too, like, no matter how hard it is to see it, there is always beautiful things in the situation that is happening. So I don't know, it might be harder to find in certain situations, but I don't think that there's any situation in this holiday thing where you can just be like, this is just gonna suck, and that is the way that it is, yeah, within reason. But I feel like there are always things that you can do to change the way that you're seeing it.
Yeah. And I think just going back to, again, expectation with just what are we really celebrating? If the whole point is Jesus, then really what I want is a whole lot less important. Are we celebrating the birth of Jesus? Are we focusing on being so thankful for all the things that we've been given? Are we focusing on family? These things that are hugely important for what we're celebrating. I think that's a really big deal. And maybe the other part of it is too, is just to kind of get out my own world. Maybe this year, because we do have the 23rd open, which typically we don't, maybe rather than sit around and being sad that Ty isn't here with us, it's maybe we do have a big Christmas party and invite guests that we would normally invite for dinner and just make it a way to just love on people outside our community, outside our family. I mean, so I think that's a good way too. It is hard. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
The feelings are real, right? Which is our next thing we just wanted to touch on. The feelings are real.
Yeah.
There are things.
Yeah. And
we're going to encounter.
It's okay. Like to feel that. It's okay to be sad or be frustrated or be disappointed. Like it's okay to feel. But I think what we're trying to say is what you do with the feelings is super important, especially when you have a lot of moving parts, a lot of people involved, like on the holidays.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage y'all to, instead of feeling all those things and then letting that dictate the way that you show up to the holidays, let yourself feel all those things, process through them in a way that helps you to be able to show up in a different perspective. Does that make sense? Like while you're still feeling, like I think about this, like I'm just preparing for Christmas Day or the 23rd or what we're going to be with his family on all those days. And I'm expecting emotions to come up. I might cry at some point. It might happen, and that's okay. And I'm going to let myself feel that. But once I feel it, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to hang out with them and I'm going to have a great time. Enjoy them, and I'm going to love on them because they're my family too. So we're not saying like you shouldn't be feeling all those things and just switch your perspective and be a positive thinker, and like that's not it. And naturally, I'm actually a negative thinker, so I'm telling you not from this optimistic perspective, but from a very realistic point of view. Like acknowledge your feelings, but then choose how you show up after that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's so good. Why don't you read this verse, because I think it so perfectly leads us back into exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
So this one is Psalm 119, 15 and 16.
15 and 16. It says, I'm
Dun,
did it wrong.
dun, dun, dun.
It says, I will meditate on your precepts and fix my eyes on your ways. I will delight in your statutes. I will not forget your word.
Yeah.
And
One of the things I've noticed, I just got done studying Psalm 119 for about the last 4 months. And one of the things I noticed is that the psalmist did not have it all figured out. The one thing he knew was that God was sovereign over all and that God was good and it was worth it to study his word and to follow. But it was also, he lived in the real world and it was difficult. And there were a lot of difficult features and factors that came into play. And so what I love is that he continually comes back to, he'll say, even just right before this, I'm sure, he says like, my enemies are all around me. People are, not in this one, but in the rest of it, if you wander through that, people are rebuking me and they're being angry with me or whatever. And then he says, but I'm going to keep I'm going to meditate on your precepts, fix my eyes on your ways. So I think you're right, Ty. It's not like he hasn't said there are difficulties. He's just saying, you know what, Lord, that is real, but I trust that you are so good. You put me in family. You love me. It's rehearsing truth and speaking the reality of the feelings too. But so I think it's like a guide, if I could say that, with our feelings. Like you're not just going, oh, I don't have those feelings, think this. But it's just reminding your feelings, like you don't control me. You're just a temperature gauge of what I need to focus on and think about or fix and think, right? But it's just keeping those feelings saying, yeah, it's real. And God, you are good.
yeah,
And you've blessed us with great celebration and food and family and fun and, just all the things. So I think it's rehearsing truth,
yeah.
even while maybe we feel the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially like as a natural, I would say naturally I'm more of a pessimist, maybe verging realist. Feel like lately, like as I have been so intentional, and I'm not disregarding my feelings, I am all about the emotions. But what I'm doing with those feelings is I'm acknowledging them and I'm saying, okay, but this isn't how I want to show up. So I'm going to choose to see something that I don't naturally see.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to act. And I feel like that has been so life changing for me, just as a natural, more glass half empty person. Like it has transformed. I mean, I'm sure it's going to transform the holidays, but it's also transformed my marriage. It's transformed my friendships. It's transformed the way I can show up in my business every day, the way I can show up for my nanny kids. Like,
Yeah.
it really does change. And it's not an absent, what's the word? An it's not that the feelings aren't there, but it's
Right.
that I'm addressing that negative thought, the negative feeling, or just a feeling, and I'm turning it over into how I actually want to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear it will transform your life.
Yeah. I think one of the other things I heard the other day that relating to holidays makes stuff good, because let's just for one just quick second just talk about sometimes holidays are difficult. Not all the people in our family are perfect like we are. And so there are difficult people. There are difficult situations. We may have gone through something this year that makes getting together at the holiday a little more stressful, a lot more strain. Maybe it's never been easy, and this is always a time of year where that's difficult. But I just want to encourage you as a follower of Christ to just take on the willingness and the desire to, one, be prayerful, just to bathe that whole holiday season in prayer, that God, you are good. Let me remember that the reason you came was so that I could have life. And then to turn that perspective on the people around us. We are all so broken and so lost, and this journey is so difficult, and everybody handles it differently. And you might go through one circumstance that the other person has, and they may handle it completely opposite of you. And that's hard. But we can have grace towards people. And I'm not giving this advice because I've got it figured out. I am just really trying and asking the Lord to change this in me. So the first thing I see in someone, especially when they're not nice, or maybe they're cold or whatever, is just to say, you know what? You love them. You want relationship with them. Your heart is to heal these broken pieces that cause them to be angry or bitter or whatever the case may be. And sometimes we just say stuff and we don't think about it and we don't realize that it might be hurtful, because to me it doesn't sound hurtful. So I would just say, walk in with grace, walk in with goodness, and let's just remove abuse. Okay, we're not talking about that. If there's abusive situations, you need more help than this podcast, right? Get some professional. I'm just talking about tense. Yeah. Just to extend grace, to extend love. If somebody speaks unkindly, assume the best and speak a word of love and peace back. I heard a really good distinction between a peacemaker and a peaceful person. A peacemaker, which is what Scripture talks to us about, is someone who's willing to confront in love something that's caused hurt and deal with it. And so to be a peacemaker, it says, gosh, I noticed that you're upset with me today. Is there something I've done? How can I make it right? I just love you and I want to enjoy this time. What have I done? But somebody who just wants to gloss it over and pretend like nothing's there, then that actually doesn't heal anything, because it's always brewing. So to be willing to be a peacemaker, you might not want to do it on Christmas Day. Yeah. But if you know something's happening, maybe give a call to the auntie or cousin or sister or whatever and just say, gosh, I love you. We've got some brokenness here, I think. And is there something I can do? How can I, take care of my portion of what's gone on here, whatever. So I think all the feelings are real. And then you throw in the Hallmark perspective that you desire, and reality meets non-reality and life gets chaotic, right? Yeah. So I think those are all good things.
Yeah, and I think even kind of tagging on to that, like you can come in with grace, but you can also come in with this perspective of maybe my expectations weren't met, maybe I'm having a hard time, and you can focus on that, or you can be like, how can I love the people that I'm around today? How can I love my mother-in-law? Maybe I could do the dishes for her. How can I love my grandma? Can I help her set up things? Or coming out of this individualistic mindset into the holidays of how can I best love the people around me today.
Yeah. And to bring that back to the godly perspective, if this were Jesus, how would he serve in this situation? And I don't think he would serve with a heavy heart. He would just serve because he loved, not because they were acknowledging him or affirming him. So like you said, doing the dishes, she may not say thank you. She may even gripe at you. Why are you doing dishes in my kitchen? Or you're doing it wrong or whatever. You just, to be gracious and to speak that word back. We're not serving them because we need that affirmation. And that's the end goal. The goal is, I just want to be Jesus in this situation. So how can I best let God's love pour into me so that I can show that, whether anybody acknowledges it or not, whether it goes the way I hoped or not. If we're honoring God in that and we're really wanting to listen and operate out of that, then I really believe that God does something good. May not be in the moment, and that's hard because we want to see immediately results. But just trusting that God is faithful. And so even if it's one small thing, maybe you greet with a smile, or you hug, or you, like you said, Ty, just serve well. Man, that changes people. Like we, couldn't even understand, because they just go, whoa, what happened? So yeah, I think those are good. And could we not talk about this for days?
We could go forever.
Really, honestly, we could, because there's so many situations and so many things we can think of, and 1,000 times where I got it wrong, and I could share stories of that. But remind me, we're going to do an upcoming podcast about funny holiday things, and I'll just throw in there the very first Christmas present that Brett gave me that was a total bust, and I was so mad about. So that's a teaser for an upcoming episode that we'll have.
I don't even know. I'm anxiously waiting now.
Yeah, I think you've heard the story, but it is funny because we still laugh about it. And he'll even ask me when I ask for something now, he'll say, are you sure this is what you're asking? So, communication.
Love it. Communication, perspective, feeling all the feels, but still in all of that, remembering season isn't even about us. It's about Jesus.
Amen.
People well.
That's right.
All right. Amen and amen.